everybody. I'm Namita Thapar, Executive Director of MCure Pharmaceuticals, and we're super excited to launch Season 3 of Uncondition Yourself. Today, we're taking up a very important topic, kidney disorders. You will be shocked to hear some of the statistics. There are 195 million women globally that suffer from CKD. Chronic kidney disorder is the 6th fastest cause of death. And finally, 60 to 70% of the organ donors for kidney transplant always end up being women. To find out more about these issues, we have Dr. Jatin Kothari, Dr. Bahadur, our two incredible ladies, Shibani and Anita. Dr. Kothari, we'll start with you first. What exactly do you mean by chronic kidney disorders? Tell us a bit more in layman terms about the causes, the symptoms. What are the basics that we need to keep in mind?
So when we say CKD, it stands for chronic kidney disease, and when we use the term chronic, it means that there is progressive worsening of kidney function over a period of time. Yeah. It's for simplicity, it's divided into stages, so stage 1 to stage 5. Stage 1 is the early stage of kidney disease, and when you progress from stage 1 to 5, you're talking about somebody requiring either dialysis or a transplant. That's required when you have stage 5 kidney disease. The common causes are usually globally seen as hypertension and diabetes. These form almost 65 to 70% of all CKD patients across the world. What are the symptoms to find out whether you have kidney disease? Yes, some patients will have progressive swelling of the feet. Some will present with high blood pressure when they go to a clinic for a routine checkup. And 30 to 40% of the times, patients have absolutely no symptoms.
Oh, really?
So it's asymptomatic, and patients go to the doctor for some other reason, and when they are tested, they are found to have kidney disease. So it's something where prevention and early detection has a very important role, because you can understand that if the person doesn't present with symptoms, how do you pick up the disease? And only if you pick it up early is when you can actually reverse it.
So for these 30-40% patients, how is it picked up?
Yes. So doing simple things like a urine test and doing a test called serum creatinine, which is a blood test, is the easiest way of picking up early stages of kidney disease. And this is advisable for all patients who are at a high risk of developing CKD. And when I say high risk, it means if you have a family history of high blood pressure, if you've noticed high blood pressure or maybe marginal sugars at some time in the past, you should be more careful. Some patients have actually a genetic predisposition also to develop kidney disease. So these patients have to be more careful. And beyond the age of 40, it's recommended to do these simple tests to pick up kidney disease at the early stage so that we can treat them and in some cases even prevent them.
Again, can we talk a little bit more about dialysis, transplant? What exactly does it entail for a patient?
So CKD stage 5 is when we are talking about kidney function being less than 10% of normal. So somebody has to lose 90% of kidney function to be labeled as CKD stage 5. Now the two options which are available for treatment for patients who have CKD stage 5 is either they have to go on permanent dialysis. Dialysis are of two types. Either it's the blood dialysis, which is called hemodialysis, and there is a peritoneal dialysis which is done through the abdomen. When you talk about a transplant, that is obviously a better option for people who have a living donor in the family, or even if somebody is lucky enough to get a transplant from a donor who's donated after their death. That's a better option for giving them a better quality of life and really making a difference in terms of giving them a normal lifespan compared to dialysis. Dialysis is somewhat inferior treatment if you compare it to transplant.
But what is the success rate in a transplant?
So transplants, thankfully with the scientific advances that we've seen over the last 50 years, transplantation has become hugely successful. More than 95% of patients who have a transplant have a good functioning life after the transplant. They don't require dialysis at all. So transplantation is ideal, and that's the reason why promoting organ donation and promoting transplantation in the legal framework of our country is very important.
Very important. This is a perfect segue to Dr. Bahadur, because since we're talking about kidney transplant, what I'd like to understand more from you is, what is the process like in terms of matching the donors? How long does it typically take? Because we hear all this in the media, about the kidney racket, and I think it's to some extent even sensationalized. I want to know the real facts. What is the ground reality?
Sure. So actually media gets all the wrong things happening, and the real things which happen. 90% of all transplants are live related transplants in India.
Okay.
Now, this transplant, the donor is a live related person. Who can be a live donor? Mother, father, brother, sister, wife, grandfather, grandmother, son, daughter.
Correct.
So these are what is known as the near relatives. If the near relatives do not match or not available or whatever, then we have extended ones like chacha, tau, batija and cousins. So this is the 90% of all transplants. These are legal and done very properly.
Okay.
And since this is a live related program, we have enough time to match them. So first we see that the person who's giving, we don't want to make two patients out of one. I always
Correct.
tell my patients. So we exhaustively investigate the donor, that once he gives, he will not have a problem ever after having given a kidney. And the kidney that is given to a recipient should work well for a period of time. Number two, so all other things are ruled out, diabetes, blood pressure and things like that. And then there is a cross-match process. Now cross-match process, there are several which are available, from basic to very fine-tuning them. So anytime a live related transplant is a good idea.
Correct.
If we don't have any live related donor, then the possibility of a disease donor transplant, which is very much in the media. And actually in the West, 60% of all donors are transplants are disease donors. Unfortunately in India, since the awareness is less, this transplant number is less than 10%.
Okay.
So this reversal should be seen once people understand that donation after death is a very noble thing, which can be done without any issues.
Let's discuss, what are the complications post kidney transplant, both for the patient as well as the donor?
If the donor follows our normal instructions, which is that for the next 3 months, they don't lift heavy weights, which is the common complication which happens with a donor could be an incisional hernia. If there's a big incision and if he lifts a lot of weights early on before the wound has completely healed, there could be incisional hernia.
Correct.
Beyond that, since we have tested thoroughly with this live donor, we do not expect any problems with him.
Okay.
Only thing is follow-up is required.
Correct.
We ask them to come after 1 month and every year, which I think anybody should normally also be doing.
Got it.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful. And then for the patient?
Yes. Now for the recipient,
Yes.
our patients, you always tell them that any transplant is 90 to 95% successful. In 5 to 10% patients, despite whatever, we can have either rejection or infection, some surgical complications or bleeding. These things are
Are there
possible.
certain patients who are more prone to this, and what is the reason?
So, despite all our doings, I can tell you, internationally, these are the figures that we expect a 95% success rate.
Okay.
In 5%, there would still be problems, and all problems have some solutions. So, we can always do that.
But is there a way to know ahead of time that this patient is most likely going to fall in the 5%?
Correct. That is why we have got very fine methods of testing and cross-matching now.
Got it.
So now we have got single antigen and so many things, flow cross-match. These were not available a few years back.
Okay.
And these are not available for cadaver transplant. So that is the difference between a cadaver transplant and a live related. A live related, we would expect to have a lot of life going with him, and a cadaver also would work well, but there is a difference.
Got it. No, that's fantastic. And that's again a great segue to coming back to you, Dr. Kothari, to understand that like most health conditions, there are always misconceptions, there are always taboos that we don't openly talk about. And part of this show is always addressing them head on and bringing it out in the open, and let's speak about it. So can you just tell us more?
Sure. When we talk about taboos about kidney disease, number one problem is awareness. And as Dr. Bahadur mentioned, the overall awareness of me donating all my organs after death is a no-brainer, right? I mean, we can easily donate all our organs and save at least 10 to 12 lives because we can donate our liver, lungs, heart, intestines, kidneys, eyes. You know what? Everything can be transplanted and given to the right patients, they can all have a lease of life.
Right.
Unfortunately, because of the whole aspect of media focusing on some activities which are happening, which are not as per the law, the whole transplant scenario becomes more difficult for patients, and they have to go through more rigorous processes where we have to be doubly sure that this is a related transplant, there is no financial transaction, etc. So basically a whole aspect of awareness is the most important thing which we have to overcome and try and promote more of the legal transplant activity.
So well said. I mean, both of you have spoken in such layman terms about something so complex. Now I'd like to move on to our lovely ladies. Let's start with you, Anita.
Sure. Well, so I was diagnosed with CKD stage 5 in 2018. So I've actually been on dialysis for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I was on four times a week dialysis initially. Because I was that bad. I was extremely anemic as well. My hemoglobin dropped. So I think that's another thing which happens with kidney diseases. I was one of those asymptomatic patients. So I did not have kidney-related symptoms. I had other symptoms. So I was like weak. I think what happens typically when you're told you're at CKD stage 5 is that you zone out.
Absolutely.
You know, completely zone out in terms of what's happening to me? Why me? How do I deal with this? What happens to me? And actually, one of the things that gave me a lot of strength was at the clinic I go to for dialysis. One of the doctors came up to me initially, first dialysis. You know, I had a boat in my neck at that time. He said, "Don't worry. Even with dialysis, you can live a normal life. It's an adjustment, but you can live a normal life." I just looked at him and said, like, how? How is this? You know, I'm in this situation where I can barely carry myself, and, you know, I can just walk. I used to, you know, go to the clinic in a wheelchair and stuff because I was that anemic. Where are you envisioning this normal? He says, "Don't worry. I'm a cancer survivor. Can you make out?" So it's about how you conduct yourself.
That's amazing.
And that really gave me strength. And most importantly, the weight that you gain in between dialysis is something that you need to maintain.
Right.
So your water consumption, your diet restrictions, everything comes into play.
It's very important.
So it's about a liter of water a day, including your tea, coffee, and your meals. So that's what you can, along with your tablets, which are like a zillion inches big. Yeah. So I've learned to live with 500 mils of water, and in the hospital, doctors are like, you need to drink five liters. I'm like, I have to remind myself
That's after the transplant.
to drink after transplant. It's like I have to remind myself that I can have more water with this one big tablet.
Because you're just so used to having so little.
4 years of conditioning of drinking just 500 mils of water.
So you had 4 years of dialysis.
I had 4 years.
Before you had your kidney transplant.
I did. Really,
Once you got your transplant, was it like doctor said, a live transplant?
It was. My sister gave me her.
Okay.
So, like I said, 4 years ago when we tried matching, the test didn't match. So, we were a blood group mismatch. Plus, I had antibodies to her blood group. So, doctor said, we can work with anyone. We can't work with both. Your chances of rejection go up as you have more more complications or more permutation combinations that we need to work with. So then finally we, in Jan of this year, I fell sick again. I was severely anemic. And as a part of that, when I saw a doctor, and then they said, let's redo all your tests. So when we redid the tests, it was simply a miracle, actually. We matched. My sister and I matched. On 19th of April is when I had my surgery.
Oh my God, how has the last month been?
It's been pretty amazing. It's been, so initially, of course, doctor knows.
And no more dialysis needed, right?
No.
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer,
It's a game changer.
So initially...
So after 4 years of going through dialysis, it probably takes conditioning to think, I don't need to go.
Correct. Suddenly I had this whole new surge of energy and I was like, I don't want to waste a single day. I want to get going. Doctor, can we have the stitches out today? Can we go home?
Liberating.
Yeah, I don't want to waste a single day anymore. I just want to be... I'm raring to go. I'm just now currently following doctor's instructions and staying at home safe.
No, but this is so beautiful.
So many myths of the transplant.
Exactly, and more than myths, forget all of that. The body language says it all. The positivity, the joy, the energy. So many women out there who are scared about their upcoming surgery know that, hey, look, this is how you feel after it. Go get it done. Right?
Most people, actually, they worry about a couple of things. One is getting a live donor.
Right.
1, 2. Second is finances. None of this comes cheap.
Absolutely.
2. 3, I think they often don't take control of their, their illness. To know how much to consume or not. It's because in summers, it's very difficult to just manage 500 mils of water. Right. It's simply impossible. Absolutely. Plus, you have dietary restrictions. You can't have A, B, C, D. You're limited in your diet. And most people are not, most people who fall sick are, these days we see younger patients, but most people are like in their 40s or older. They're not able to control all their diet. They want to have that same lifestyle that they had before, which also leads to it's a big change. And all of that leads to to you gaining more weight in between dialysis, which means your dialysis is going to be harder on your body, which means you're going to go home more tired than you need to be. And
So
you need
keeping
to,
that weight in control is
Very.
absolutely important.
Absolutely.
Weight, your water intake,
Yes.
all of that has to be absolutely monitored.
Absolutely.
So while we are on this, I can tell you, dialysis replaces 10 to 15% of a normal kidney function. Transplant replaces 85 to 90%. That is the difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a huge difference.
Absolutely.
It's a life transforming. I mean, you get another life.
I'd love to hear about it from you, Shibani. You've been, it's like you can relate to every word that Anita was saying.
I mean, if I have to say, my challenges were less as compared to her, but I want to give her a big hug, because it's not easy what she went through.
Look at that smile, look at the positivity, the strength.
And I was just had in mind 576 dialysis sessions.
Wow.
Oh, you calculated in 4
because,
years.
for me, my maths is like you have to 12 in a month. And then 144 into 4 years, 576.
Oh my God.
It's
It is about
not
that.
easy.
It's about right.
It's
Oh,
not easy.
572 sessions.
Yeah.
So hats off to you. Such a warrior she's been. And dialysis is not easy.
I think that's the right word. You've
It's not
absolutely
easy.
been a warrior. And look at that beautiful smile on your face. I mean, that's just going to give so much hope to so many women.
Thank you.
But Shibani, you have a big smile too. Let's hear about your brave journey.
For me, my story would have not existed if I did not have a live donor. It's as simple.
Who was your live donor?
My younger brother.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was 26 years old and I was 30.
You were very young when you had it. How did you diagnose it?
So I was diagnosed at an age of 24. I was
my
6
God.
months into my marriage.
24?
Yes. And I was doing absolutely fine, in terms, I was asymptomatic. I did not have any symptoms. Because I was so active, I used to be very fit with my aerobics, my yoga, my walk. That used to be like something which was kind of there in the family. So there was no way I could have thought that something like this. And to kind of understand this, he said you are in the 4th stage of kidney disease because both the kidneys have shrunk, especially the left one, and you're at a 30% right now. So from there on, the acceptance was very difficult, but although there was no other choice for me, I had to accept it. I made it a point that I'm going to fight it out. My husband was super supportive. My parents were very supportive. Says, you're going to fight it out. Then I have a younger brother who we did not even think about. There was no way we were considering him. He just comes to the dialysis room and he said, I've met the doctor and I'm going to give you the kidney.
Wow.
Amazing story. I think.
I said, are you in your mind? Like, you're out of your mind. You cannot be thinking on these lines.
Varun was 20, right?
26.
26.
Not married, and he had a lot of apprehensions, not from what he had thought of, but from the kind of people that his friends and our extended family. He says, what are you going to do to my mom that, you're thinking you're sacrificing your boy for your daughter.
That's actually what people said.
Yeah. 12th of March, I clearly remember, 8 o'clock, we went into, I think I have to give my mother and my husband, they were standing there at the OT thing, and quite brave of them, for both of them to see both of us going inside, not knowing what the results are going to be. And Dr. Kothari mentions around 6 o'clock, the gold is out, as in your urine is out. So you're like, it's a success. And the first thing I came on the recovery, I'm asking, where's my brother? Where's my brother? Is he fine? Is he fine? Yeah. So once you go back to your normal life, it's not a normal life until you want to get convinced about it. And then the only thing we went into the space, you start walking. The first 15 minutes I was crawling, and the worst was the mask I was wearing. So people were giving me like a stares, like, what's wrong with this girl? She must have had some infectious disease or maybe a tuberculosis. So I went to the gym, I went to the yoga. Like how Dr. Kothari said, they are not people who are aware about it. They don't have a Google to kind of see, okay, if she's saying something, there is something to it as well. So people ask, you have no kidney? You have 1 kidney? You have 2 kidneys? Or you have no kidneys? I read this autobiography by Oscar Pistorius, and he said, you're not disabled by the disabilities you have, you're able by the abilities you have.
Wow.
From that
Beautiful.
day onwards, I said, whether it's about 1 kilometer walk, whether it's about walking for 2 hours, I am going to do it. And people would, swear by it, Shibani is the girl, whether it's raining, she will definitely be there. And from there on, I decided to run marathons.
Oh my God, are you for real? So how many marathons have you run in the last 8 years? I'm scared to
Can't
even
count
ask.
it, can't count it.
I'm genuinely scared to ask. How many?
So the last which I did was the Amsterdam Marathon. I wanted to do an international marathon, and I've done
really
35 marathons.
35
That's really
Unbelievable.
in the last
Wow.
8 years.
Yeah, they were less as compared to any other.
Completely amazing.
And
Oh my
of
God,
course,
I
we started-
always have goosebumps when I'm shooting
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, and end of the day, women are powerful.
Yes, they have,
They have
enormous
enormous
internal
strength.
strength.
Yeah, and whatever it
You
takes,
just have to believe.
you have to believe.
The other point which I just wanted to make was about, for donors, right? So
Right.
your insurance doesn't cover a donor. My sister has an excellent health cover,
Okay.
but it doesn't cover her donating a kidney. It covers her for receiving a kidney.
Okay.
So why not?
So insurance laws need to change.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
That's a very
Definitely.
important point you're
Why
bringing
not?
out.
Even
Yeah.
for
So-
transplant people, we do not get insurance anymore.
So yeah, because I didn't have health cover before I fell sick.
Yeah,
So after I fell sick, they won't cover me for kidney.
Pre-existing
Cover.
conditions is a huge
Pre-existing
challenge.
is a
and,
huge challenge. Yes.
I
And
hope
every
that
step
this
of the way.
video of these two brave
Creates more
women
awareness
we
and-
can give to all nephrologists pan India and they show it to all their patients.
Correct.
We talk about this all the time in our episodes that most women don't speak up. Here we have two brave women who are reliving the journey, bringing strength and positivity and talking about it in such wonderful terms. We need more women to do that. Most importantly, I think one of the themes coming all across is not just break the taboos, organ donation. We heard about the long wait list. We heard about how the percentages are much higher globally than in India. One takeaway from this episode, be strong, learn from these women, but most importantly, become a part of the nationwide organ donation drive, save a life, give someone hope. That's absolutely important. Thank you.
ढूंढने है वो निकली तकदीर अपनी उजली ढूंढने है वो निकली तकदीर अपनी उजली इल्ली ने मन में ठाना है बन के उड़ना है